Welcome to our informational show. I'm Tamara Stuchlak, and in this segment, we talk about the creative process from a renowned poet and a person in literature. Her name is Marina Tuyrina Oberlander. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you have an interesting path toward being a poet. Tell us a little bit about, I understand that you've written and been a poet all your life, but you worked as a translator. Tell us a little bit about that part of your journey.
Thank you. You know, I come from a family that was a very creative family. My father was a soil scientist, but besides...
In Russia?
In Russia, yeah. And he had a few hobbies. He wrote poetry too, but always joked that if he would go deep into that, the soil science will suffer very much.
Did he read you bedtime stories that were poetry, his poetry?
I have some of his poetry. But he played cello. He loved to do woodwork. He painted. He painted watercolors. So my family was really very creative, and I learned a lot from my father, and especially from my grandfather, because my grandfather had a very interesting history. He was a teacher with 4 degrees: geography, mathematics, literature, and languages, and he spent 11 years in the Gulag. But fortunately enough, he came back 2 years before I was born. And he took care of me. He was my first teacher,
wow.
my first nanny, together with my grandmother. And I spent a lot of time in actually being born in St. Petersburg. I spent the first 4 years of my life in Ukraine, in a small town. With beautiful nature. Our house was on the bank of the river. We had a piece of land that was our own beach. And it was beautiful, and the people that surrounded me were very nice. And my first teacher of English, I started to study English when I was 4 years old, was my own aunt, who was actually a countess in the past. So I got a very good education, and when I graduated from school...
Did you know coming up through your schooling that you'd be a writer of some sort, that it was your pastime?
I started to compose when I was a child. I liked to swing in the swings, and I would compose a song, or I would compose a poem.
And your family encouraged you?
Yeah, my family encouraged me because they...
Do you think that made a difference?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because first of all, I had an example before my eyes, my parents, my grandparents.
And their interests in so many domains.
Yes, yes, and I painted too. I painted, and I stopped painting when I graduated from university because I didn't have any time for that, and also because I completely switched to writing. And I played the piano. I still play it.
What has influenced your work? So you've written 2 published books. You've been a translator, a published translator in Danish, a CD, articles, and I understand some of your poems are being put to music and songs. So what have some of your influences been in your more recent works?
In my recent works, you know, actually, it is interesting because when I was living in the Soviet Union, it was very difficult to get your own poetry published. Translations were different, but you had to get somebody to ask you to translate something that was already approved. You couldn't come with a translation and say, I translated this and this poet.
A hierarchy.
Please look at this, and maybe you will, publish it. No, it didn't work. It didn't work. you had to have somebody to...
A pedigree of some sort.
Yeah. So I worked in a publishing house as an editor for many years. And I established very good relations with different, departments. Although I worked in a department where we published, translated, edited, and published Russian literature in foreign languages. It was one of the largest publishing houses in Russia, in the Soviet Union, which was called Progress. And it published political literature, and it also published fiction. So then this publishing house divided, split into two, and I went with the part which was called Rainbow, Raduga, which was publishing only fiction. So I offered my translations to the department that was translating from foreign languages. And actually they accepted and took a few. Then I, established very good relations with the radio committee, and then with one of humor and satire magazine, which was called Crocodile, and offered my translations of short stories from Danish, which were absolutely non-political, and that was actually accepted. Of course, when they were published and when they were especially on the radio, a lot of the text was cut, changed. Well,
and you're also part
that
of,
is history.
Right, but you're also part of a prestigious international writers union.
Yeah, this...
And came here, immigrated here in what year, and then were published first here in 2008?
Yes. I came to United States first time in 98, then I came second time in 99. I had no idea.
You were here on travel?
I traveled. I traveled. My daughter was studying in Germany. I visited her. Then I went to Paris to visit my friends there. Then I came to the United States, and my friends tried to show me everything. They took me to Kennedy Center. They took me to New York. They took me to different events and dinners. And at one dinner, I met my future husband, which actually is my husband now. We lived together for 16 years, and I'm very happy. So I had no idea that I would stay here. It was, a gift.
This creative process, how would you distinguish, what you've seen other poets and people who write short stories? What distinctions do you see in your work that I know you've called it use of abstract, philosophical, artistic? Talk about your creative process and how
Well, my creative process is absolutely unpredictable. Poems come from above. I only have to write them down. Of course, after I write them down...
So how do you think that happens? You say from above, or...
I don't know. I'm walking, for example, I'm walking in the zoo, and I
in
see
Washington, D.C.
in Washington, D.C. We live across the zoo, so we walk there practically every day. And I have some idea. It comes, I don't know how.
So we just don't have good words for inspiration?
No, I don't have words for inspiration. I have inspiration. And then I have to write them.
Poems, you were saying, literally, the end of the poem pops out for you.
Either
and that's the roadmap for you.
Either the end or the middle or the beginning. Mostly the end.
But in literature, it's different. When you write a short story...
When I write a short story, I have an idea of short story. And then I have to start writing. And sometimes I have to go through the beginning a few times while I'm in the stream, finally. Like when you go into the river and
But you have many years of experience in many, aspects of the publishing field and writing field that then you can rely on this inspiration, correct?
Yes, I can. I can rely on it, because if I have it and if I start writing, I cannot stop. I can actually, sometimes I can write a few poems in one day. I can write half a story in one day. And then I can go for 2 weeks, 3 weeks without writing one line.
Is that stressful? Does that, not meet an expectation of yours? Or
No,
are you...
no, it's not stressful at all. It's not stressful at all. What is stressful, actually, is to find time to finish the story. Because if it drags you, if you have to follow it, and if you stop it, it won't work. Sometimes it stops by itself because I have to think, no, I had another idea, but the story drove me to this point, and I now have to change my idea. That is different. But when I have and if I am in the flow, I cannot wait until going back to work. And that is, that is stressful. That is very stressful.
Is there a dark side to creativity, or your experience, or an event in your life that pushed sort of the limit of your creativity?
No, I don't.
And as we're coming to the end of this segment.
Limits. I don't have limits. I don't think that I came actually to the limits of my creativity. I am still creative, and I have lots of plans and ideas to fulfill. Sometimes I don't have enough time. And that is the back, side of a medal of creativity, because you don't have leisure time. You simply don't have it. You have to actually push aside a lot of things that you probably would have liked to do. But if you are in the middle of something, you just cannot do anything about that.
So as we're coming to the close of this portion of the segment, is there something that you do that has a balance between this creativity, your work, and making time for that?
Actually, well, I have to I'm a wife, and I have a house, and I have to do a lot of work in it. I don't like anybody to help me still, until I am capable of doing it myself. But when I'm cooking, it's creativity. When I'm cleaning, it's creativity.
Well, we will be right back with more on creativity.